stories. Today I like to talk with you about stories. Stories are what makes us human. We need our stories. Our stories help us to give meaning to what is happening right now in this moment, in us and around us. And the quality of our lives depend on the qualities of the stories that we tell ourselves. There is an art in knowing, an art in understanding which stories to deepen and which stories to help let go. So I'd like to take you along on a story, on a journey that started right here on the hill of Upper Hamlet, thousands of years ago. Imagine taking you along, flying north, up over the forests in the direction of the Dharma River. And at the Dharma River, we would go east, up until we meet the Weser. And there, we meet a delta. And in the delta, we see in the distance a light. And as we come closer to that light, we see a fire and a group of people around the campfire. As we approach it, we smell the smoke, and we start hearing the popping of the fire. There's a simple people wearing very simple, natural clothing, and they are softly talking to each other. And at one moment, one person stands up and starts to tell a story. He just came back from the hunt. And he tells the community of what he experienced, of which plants and trees they met and where maybe there could be good grounds for gathering, which animals they saw and what went well in the hunt and the mistakes they made and what they learned from it. And so as this story was told, this person was capable of sharing his mind and his experience of that moment with the whole community. And knowledge was passed. Culture was passed. We learned to learn from each other's experiences. And so, this made us very successful as a human species. Our stories and culture made us capable of adapting and helping us to make sense of what is going on through our senses in the here and now. So stories, they help us to do that. And a good, beneficial story is capable of transporting us into an experience where the experience of the story is more real than life as it is happening in the moment. But an unbeneficial story has that capacity too. And what are those stories that we keep telling ourselves over and over and over, that are more real, that feel more real than life itself? My story with our tradition started in 2009, right in this hall. Can you imagine a 27-year-old Bart sitting right over there at that little spot with his back to the Buddha looking at the linden tree. He had managed himself again to get into his burnout and wanted to know what was it in life that kept happening over and over, and his suffering that kept happening over and over again. And I needed a place to reflect, and I found Plum Village. And as I was sitting there, I was able to feel deeply, hold this story deeply. Went over my life. What is it in my life that made me so want to be the best? So want to have that beautiful car and that a lot of money? Why did I put so much pressure on myself? And as I was holding these habits, and I was sitting there, while I was holding this experience, a voice in me suddenly spoke. This voice spoke and said, "You feel that you're not good enough." Oh, that story. It felt so real in that moment. It made me reflect on my life, on all of the things that has happened in my life, and it made so much sense. Of course, when I'm not good enough, I try to prove myself. I try to be better than somebody else, trying then to see if that will help me. But it never was enough. And as I was sitting there and feeling that story, also a voice came up, like the voice of my father. And it was such a loving voice. And the voice said, "But son, don't you know? You are good enough." I felt this is a beautiful love in that moment. And Plum Village changed me. I came back to my work, and suddenly I didn't need to be the team leader anymore. I didn't need to do this anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. So I started to learn the effect of a story. One of my teachers, Evelien Beumkes, wrote a lot of songs. And you have a song sheet over here. And there is a song that I counted it. If we sing it completely, it will take us 4 minutes. So that's a long song. So I'm going to break it up into little pieces. I will sing the first part. And it goes like this. What is the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself? What is the story I tell myself over and over and over? Okay, together. What is the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself? What is the story I tell myself over and over and over? Thank you. And so, as I was in Plum Village and I learned about the 5 mindfulness trainings, and I started looking at my habits, I noticed in the 5 mindfulness trainings, one thing it said that you look at your consumption of alcohol. And I was looking at my consumption of alcohol and I felt like, whoa, okay, stopping alcohol, that's a big thing. I don't know if I'm ready. But then I asked myself a question. If I would have lived according to these principles, what kind of suffering in my life would have been prevented. And suddenly I felt, oh wow, my actions have consequences. And these consequences I then consume again. So there's a choice in what I do, so that I have a choice for the consequences as well. And I made a choice in that moment to stop drinking. And at first, with the energy of my aspiration, that was easy. But then, one day, I remember so vividly. It was a day at my work where it was kind of like, ah. And I went back home, and I sat at my sofa, and I was just like, I do not want this to be like this. And suddenly, a very smart idea came up in my mind. It was like, I still have a beer over there. And so I took the beer and I placed the beer in front of me. And as the beer was looking at me, it spoke and it said, drink me. You will feel so much better. And it was like, wow, that's a nice promise. You know, the thing is, it's kind of true. It is kind of true that it works in that moment, sort of. But as I was with the beer, I was also thinking, but wait, what is happening right now? So I placed myself in the moment, and I felt my body. I felt what was happening in my mind. And suddenly I became in touch with the experience of how I was experiencing the day at that moment. And there was something that felt, bleh. And the moment that I recognized that, I said, hello, hello, bleh. Can I be with you? And as I established myself in the moment, I had the capacity in that moment, and we will go more deeply into how to do this, to be fully present and to embrace this. And as I was embracing the emotion, I felt like, wow, this is what that really needed. It needed somebody to be in contact with it. Somebody to hold it. Somebody to share the experience with. So there was a part in me that is kind of like alive. That has a need. And if I'm able to meet that need, it has a capacity to change on its own. And so as it was changing, it finally felt, oh, okay. And right after that, I looked at my beer. And the beer was only a beer. It was no longer speaking. And I remember the moment that I took up the beer and put it back in the cupboard. I don't know why I had that beer in there. I think it was so much better to just get rid of all those old beers. I know that for myself, if something is not available, so much more easy not to do it. Just make it difficult. But that insight had to develop over the years. This is the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. This is the story I tell myself over and over and over. And so these stories evolved in me. I then at one moment found out you can drink non-alcoholic beer. I was so happy. And as I was with my friends, I started to say to them, like, it's so nice, I'm now in the pub with you and I can also drink non-alcoholic beer. You know what they did to me? He said to me, like, stop talking about non-alcoholic beer. I think you just want to drink beer, so just drink the beer and shut up. And I was like, that's not very nice to say. But I then started to think, wait, where is he coming from? And what is it that I am bringing in this situation that I want from him? I felt a little bit insecure about not drinking. And I wanted his support. I wanted him to tell me, you know, that is very good what you're doing. I fully support you. And I was like, okay, that's a good friend. That was my need I brought to him. But what was his need? As he was there, what I was asking him, he was still drinking alcohol. I was drinking my non-alcoholic beer. By asking him to say, what good is it that you drink non-alcoholic beer? I ask him to say, it is good what you do, and it is wrong what I do. And maybe he felt confronted with his own struggle with alcohol and didn't want yet or wasn't ready yet to confront that struggle. And so he did the best what he could do. Stop complaining and start drinking. The moment I understood him in this, I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's not fair on my side. I need to know what I am responsible for and what he is responsible for. So what need do I bring to another person that I don't take responsibility for? And how can I see that? Own it again and see, oh yeah, wait, this belongs in me. How uncomfortable it feels. I am feeling uncomfortable. But as I was practicing and taking refuge in myself and meditating and recognizing, bit by bit, I started to enjoy being myself. And the more I was capable of enjoying being myself, the more suddenly for me alcohol became an obstacle. Because it became the obstacle of being me. And I started enjoying being me. Hello to the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. Hello to the story I tell myself, over and over and over. So over the years my story developed, and I realized that the I am not good enough is just one part of it. I also recognized how trauma played a part in my life. So for me, trauma, as I understand it, is that there are experiences that I have had in my life, or maybe my ancestors had in their life, that were so overwhelming that I disconnected from that moment. And the theory goes that the memories from those moments have been stored disconnected. It is as if the memory and the bodily experience, the feeling and the story of it have been disconnected. So, these kind of memories, they can be triggered in a moment where the bodily reaction and the feeling of the memory manifests without the story. So that's the effect of it. And it is a very effective way for the body and the mind to recognize you might again be in that same situation that is dangerous. And so, when these experiences have been stored in your body, it can be, for example, if you had a very dominant father, that somebody in your life you come across again who looks a little bit like your father, has a kind of like the same way of being, that same seed will be triggered, and it feels again like you're around your father with the same emotional intensity of that which you experienced in the past. And this is a very beneficial way to do if you are again in a dangerous situation. And those ancestors that were at that campfire, they really needed that experience. Because all of them who didn't listen to the rustling of the leaves when there was a tiger, they were eaten. And those who listened to the leaf and there was no tiger, well, when there was a real tiger, they were already gone. So our ancestors learned it is better to already react to danger even if it is not there, than it is not to react to danger when it is there. So, by our very nature, we have received the seeds that makes us fearful and reactive, even if we are completely safe. And trauma is the kind of seeds that have been watered over and over again, that allow us to recognize what is happening in the present moment and give it meaning that maybe in that moment I feel very unsafe. I recognize that I had that issue a lot with my brothers here, where I thought they are out to get me and I need to protect myself. I only later realized that part of it was rooted in that trauma. But also, I realized that lately I've been diagnosed with ADHD and self-identified with autism. So I have like ADHD, which is, it's kind of like my life is on steroids. It's difficult to start things, but then once I started them, it's completely difficult to stop it. So I go for very long doing things. I've always felt weird in my life. I've always felt a lot of social anxiety and awkwardness. And part of it was why, as a teenager, I drank, because I then didn't have to feel all of that anxiety. Also, I started to realize that right now in my life, that is still playing. And although even a diagnosis like that is a story, it is connected to something in me that still feels like I should not be like this. I should be better capable of not making those mistakes that other people are not making. I should be better capable of not doing this, and this, what I need, that other people are not needing. And it's quite confronting still to see that there's a real art in allowing yourself to be yourself. So our experiences of the past are the building blocks of our interpretation of the present moment. I am very lucky to have my cousin here. He struggled with addiction for a while. And he found Plum Village. He trusted me to come here and to drop his story a bit in order to let go of parts of his life and to come and live with me for a few months and now already for more than a year, and he's even living close by as a neighbor. And he is also a friend of mine. And I really appreciate being around him, and I'm so happy we found each other. And I asked him, in the last year, what was the key insight for you that helped you finally break that addiction? And what he told me was that actually it was very important for him to be in an environment that was supportive. What he also told me is how important it was for him to realize that there was a boy in him that was feeling things about life. And that the negative story of I am bad, when you keep on telling that story, re-emphasizing that story, that telling that story to that boy was hurting the boy over and over again. And the moment he touched the experience of the little boy, compassion could well up a little bit. And a willingness to see like, oh wow, I am inflicting this pain when I am so tough on myself. And that gave him the capacity to see maybe there's a different way of doing it. He was also working in a quite toxic environment. He was working at Fat Ship, where they're building multi-million yachts. He's a very excellent carpenter. And these kind of yachts need to be the best of the best, so everybody needs to give the best of the best materials, the best this, the best that. But in the result of it, it has become a very toxic culture where there is no trust. And the consumption of that culture, that consumption of that environment, you cannot take outside of you. And for me it is quite interesting as well, is how often when we have a story that has served us our whole life. Like yesterday I spoke with one of the mothers here. And I said that we were going to talk about stories, and she was like, oh yes. And then I said, the stories we tell ourselves. She said, oh, don't touch that. It is interesting that somehow those stories have served us and we're holding on to them so tightly that anything that contradicts that story feels unsafe. Joy might feel unsafe. Well-being might feel unsafe. Life might feel unsafe. Connection might feel unsafe. It's better to be in my story and know that I am suffering. But there is clarity. So we might, because of holding on to that story, place ourselves over and over again in environments that are confirming the very story. So we might, in a very kind of unconscious way, choose to place ourselves in environments that keep confirming that story. And it is a real art to see ourselves doing that. It's quite confrontational when you see yourself doing that. So why? Why do we do this? I cling to the story I tell tell myself. I cling to the story I tell myself over and over and over. Well, imagine a young boy in a situation where maybe there's a father that is violent, where it is not safe to be angry around. A boy who is dependent on his very life for the people who are supposed to care for him. But what he receives as love is quite tough. And so at one moment, this boy decides something about himself. I deserve this. I am bad. He decides this because it is too threatening to realize the truth, that there are caregivers that are unreliable. A child is still very, very self-centered. It not yet have the capacity to truly see that the intentions of other people are not related to its own actions. That maybe it didn't do anything wrong. Because that doesn't make sense, because then the adults are not caring, and then that would not be safe. So it does the best thing it has at his ability to make the decision like, this must be happening because of me. Because I am bad. And so a story is born. What is your story? You tell yourself over and over and over. And that story served us. You made it. All of you. Whatever suffering you've had in your life, you've made it to this moment. It served you. So, is it safe enough to start seeing whether that story is still serving you right in this moment? In order to do that, we need the capacity. So, we need to recognize that we have a story. We need to recognize that we are caught in it. We need to recognize then how to be with it. So, I have a few ways to recognize that I am caught in a story. The first, to recognize. In the present moment, I feel that what I am experiencing is a truth that I am a victim of. So, truth. I am a bad person. It feels completely true. When something like that feels like the truth, we might be caught. And the second aspect of that truth is that we feel it's kind of like I am a victim of this situation. And maybe I am inflicting that wound as well to myself. Like, let me already talk myself down before the other person can do that for me. He must already be thinking this and this and this about me. I must already be a burden to this person. And we take on the responsibility of the other person and put that on ourselves. Better hurt myself first and be safe than to allow the other person to hurt me, without giving the other person the chance to actually hurt you or not. So this truth there is something in this truth that makes the space I am in contracted and small, and at the same time it feels that the truth I am holding is connected to a problem that is out there, and the only way out is to make sure that the problem is gone. So this sense of urgency to help is another sign. And that there is a problem that has so much importance to fix, and that has nothing to do with what I am experiencing right now. So there's a very clear inside problem, inside experience, and an outside problem. So, the situation where we're in, the space that we're in, the story that we're in, has become more real than my breath, my steps, my body, the earth, everything else that is in the present moment. It sort of gets pushed aside, doesn't become available, and the only thing is this one thing that I have fallen together with. I have taken one part of life, an interpretation, a story, and made it more real than what is happening right now. And that's a superpower of being human. But in this case, it made us suffer. So, I give you 3 things to recognize. Do I experience it as truth, and am I a victim to it? Is there a sense of urgency? And am I resisting everything that is not related to that urgency? Is the only solution in fixing, and the practice doesn't work? It's unable to be embraced. Recognize that? Moments where you try to embrace your suffering, and the suffering goes like, no. This is not one that you can practice with. This one needs to be solved. And that is out there. They need to change. Recognizable. So, the way out. The way out is making space. How do we make space? The art is to recognize I am caught. And that starts with maybe singing a song to you, one of those verses. I mean, I'm repeating them over and over in you so that seed gets planted. So maybe in the moment you're caught, you can remember. Because mindfulness is not just being aware of the present moment, what is going on inside and around you. It is also to remember. So in the moment we're caught, we can remember that there is a choice. And the first thing is that I can remember that there is a part in me that is feeling that. And it is not the totality of my being. So in order to do that, I have a song. And it goes like this. Hello, hello, something in me I am aware that you are in there, and you sure have got good reasons to be. Hello, hello, something in me. I am aware that you are in there, and I'm going to keep you company, and I'm going to keep you company, and I'm going to keep, and I'm going to keep, and I'm going to keep you company. So I start saying hello. Hello to the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. Hello to the story I tell myself over and over and over. The interesting thing with saying hello is that saying hello implies that there is a relationship. There is something that I can say hello to. The moment I am able to say hello means there is the saying hello, the person who is saying hello, and the person who is receiving the saying hello. When I'm caught in a story, and I am that story, the moment I am able to say, hello, story, already I have more space. Because there's something that can say hello to the story. So there is something in me that has a story, so powerful. It is not the totality of my being. It is something in me. And so what I do as well in order to deepen this insight is I need to see what else is there in me and around me in the present moment that is not caught in this story. Yesterday, one of the people here came to be very proud. She said, I found a part of my body where the story is not true, and it's right here at my collarbone. Amazing. Sometimes the body can be very unsafe, but there is this one part. But also in this moment, I am traveling through space. I am right here on a planet. And I can feel its gravity. That's also true right now in this moment. I can feel that the air that I've breathed. There's another story. I know that that story is telling me that that air was produced by the trees and tiny organisms in the sea. It is their outbreath. And their outbreath is becoming my in-breath. That's also a story. But a very more beneficial story in that moment. Oh, I'm breathing in the out-breath of the trees. I am breathing out the in-breath of the trees. I am breathing in the out-breath of the sea. I am breathing out the in-breath of the sea. And the same is true with the sun and the moon. They are all contributing to life on this planet. Without them, life would not be possible. So I am also the moon and the trees. In the present moment, we can touch these kind of things. And sometimes I go to my earlobe or my little toe. Because the story I tell myself in me doesn't have a story like that in my little toe. My little toe is very happy being a little toe. It doesn't have so much complexes. It doesn't go look at my big toe and be like, oh, you are a big toe. You are so much better than me. No, my little toe is very happy and content in being in my little toe and function as my little toe. It doesn't have any complexes. There is a truth story as well when I go to my little toe like that. So I find in my experience a contradiction to that story. And I start to recognize, the truth of that story is local. And for me, it's very often around here, around my this thing here, around my chest, or sometimes around my stomach. Or when I burned my arm, I started to realize, wow, the skin of my arm feels sad. The skin of my arm is grieving. I was so fascinated by that, like, wow, feelings and emotions can also be at one part in the body. So I go back in the present moment and I recognize the contradictions. It's only a story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. It's only a story I tell myself, over and over and over. I smile to the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. It's smile to the story I tell myself, over and over and over. So there's an experience in me. Hello story. As I was walking the path over there, I remember being in front of the bookshop, and this story announced itself again. Oh, I'm not good enough. And as that story manifested itself, I was able to recognize, that is like localized here in my body. And I said to the story, hello, my dear story. Let's not feel good enough together. And as I said that, and I was with my I am not good enough, it came up, it was like, well, I just wanted to let you know. And then it passed again, and it was gone. And it was like, hey, friend, where did you go? For me, these kind of stories at one moment help me to be in touch with myself. There's something alive in me that is like a bell of mindfulness that can allow me to be in touch with myself and offer myself that love that I so am looking for. So I try to be very gentle with that part. I try to speak with it. I try to embrace it, understand it. I'm not trying to interrogate it to let me know, like, hey, what makes you? But it's more, I am allowing myself to be with it and be curious. What is the experience of this story? What is this experience of this part in me? And I now know that if I wait long enough, the story will tell me what makes it feel like this. Maybe at first it feels like anger. But once I am long enough with the anger, maybe below it I see, actually there's sadness. And I'm in touch then with the sadness. So, making space. So the challenge with the story is the moment that you are I'm caught in a story. and I'm trying to embrace the story, it could be that you start falling back into it and you get identified with it again. So it's always very good to check how much space do I truly have. So one of the practices that I teach people, and for me has been super transformative, and I talked about it in the orientation, I think, is the 3-breath joy practice. The 3-breath joy practice is when you come at life and you see things maybe that surprises you. Something that is enjoyable to see, like a flower that comes out of the rock. Maybe your initial habit is like, oh yeah, that's nice, and then walk on. So the practice is to be in touch with that wonder and then stay with it for 3 breaths. Allow that flower to become a lived experience in your body. Allow it to continue in your sight as a feeling in the body. And what I recognize when this is working for me is that suddenly there is more space happening in me. And suddenly the colors around me become more green. I have become more connected with life in itself. And there might be resistance actually to do that. Because this part in me that has trying to protect me for a very long time might not trust this process yet. And so I need to earn its trust. And I earn this trust by not going too quick. I say hello to that part, and I say to that part, how about that we look at the flower together? And the part might say like, no, you don't need that. Anyway, the problem is over there. And the solution cannot be found in flowers. Come on, dude. I definitely was one of that was like, no, I just need to embrace my suffering. Tell me about how to embrace the suffering. Don't talk to me about flowers. So what I need to do is I need to bring my faith to this experience of the last time I touched a flower and it helped. So maybe I say to the suffering, hello suffering, do you remember last time it was actually enjoyable? So what about if we just try and see what happens if we do this? And the suffering might reply with like, okay, let's try. And it's almost like a child that is afraid to go into the water, and the parent needs to already take a step into the water, holding the hand of the child and be like, oh, this is nice. And in that way, then the suffering can also step into the water and experience it and be like, oh, yes. It is for me what arriving is. We sing this song, I have arrived, I am home. Arriving is something for me that goes like, he. This is how we say it in Dutch. He. So, I am in contact with the suffering. I am in contact with the flower. I allow the suffering through my eyes to be in contact with what is happening right here and right now. I allow the story of I am bad or whatever it is to check in the present moment whether that which is afraid of happening is actually happening. And it is this what very often doesn't happen. Because it's already truth, you don't have to check, you already know. So the art is to be able to recognize there is a choice and I can check whether this story is still true in the present moment. And you do that by taking in an extra discomfort of being not right. The discomfort of joy. The discomfort of challenging the story. And interestingly enough, that once you actually start to experience it, that is what helps it to soften the story. You need to give it a new story by in the present moment, over and over again. Recognize, oh yeah, wait. Oh, this is now not happening. I very often ask people who decide for me what I think about them. I ask them, maybe you want to check with me. If you think that I already think that of you, do you want to know what I think about you? And then they go like, oh. Because it might be true what I've been thinking of you. But my experience has been over and over again that the way I think about myself is way more toxic than what other people think about me. So for me, how that specific one manifests is, for example, when I feel ashamed about something, and I do not want to take ownership of that. If I see somebody who I feel has authority, like the abbot here, and he raises his eyebrow when he sees me. He's very expressive in his face. And when that happens, it's like, oh no, I've done something wrong. Yeah, I've done something wrong. It's not gonna be okay again. Yeah, it's like, and boom, 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 I'm caught in the story. So what I did was, I went to the abbot and asked me, I said, I just want to check something with you. Because I have this thing where over and over, when I see you and you raise your eyebrow, I feel that you must be thinking of me that I've done something wrong. Is that happening for you? And he looked at me and he said, no, you? No, I never think that of you. Other people, yeah, I did. And then the art is, I have a contradiction in that moment. That contradiction doesn't match the story that I just had. And that is gold. And what very often people do, right in that moment, just like with the flower, oh yeah, and move on with their life. The art is, in that moment, you are not thinking that of me. And making that as a feeling in my body. Oh. 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 And that is how you transform the story. Bit by bit, you check in the present moment. I'm dropping the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. I'm dropping the story I tell myself over and over and over. Bye-bye to the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. Bye-bye to the story I tell myself over and over and over. Very recently I discovered that this story of I must have done something wrong and it is never going to be okay is actually a story that comes from my grandmother. Because in the Second World War, when there was the hunger winter in the Netherlands, she got a child, a teenager from Rotterdam, who had been starved. And they would send the children into the countryside to be fed. When my grandparents received this teen, she was already very deprived. And although they tried, she died in their care. And the whole time of my grandmother's life, this story came up. I've done something wrong and I cannot fix it. And I remember being in the supermarket with my mother, around the food. And I told my mom, "Mom, do you sometimes also have that feeling that you've done something wrong and you cannot fix it?" She said, "Oh yeah, I'm so sorry, you must have inherited that from me." But my aunt has it too. So our stories might not just come from us in our own life, they might come from generations of generations. And it is very helpful to say, "Oh, hello, Grandma. Hello, Grandpa. My grandfather suffered abuse. His father didn't take care of him, and he was treated very toxically. And that was passed on. And that was passed on. So the reason that I and my brother had a difficult relationship with each other at times didn't start just in my life. It is a continuation of many things. So with that, I can also see that my brother was a victim too, from his seeds that he has inherited. The moment that we start to see that other people are victim too, compassion can well up. Right, Rolf? The moment that you saw your father, he doesn't know any better. I wish he would. I wish he would. But he doesn't know any better. Compassion can come up, that can protect us. Same with ourselves. Of course, when I have these seeds manifesting in me, I will be like this. There's a reason. The moment I see that, compassion can come up. And the art then is to say to that story, "Hello, story. I want to let you know that you can be like this for as long as you need, even if it takes my whole life." Ooh. If you are capable of saying that to your story, then you know that you have truly accepted it for what it is. And it will really feel seen. It will feel like, oh, I'm finally allowed to be. So, we have our stories. And the Buddha said, the best story is no story. When we're finally able to let go of all of our stories. I think what the Buddha meant by that as well is that our stories get back their proper place. They come back as an interpretation of what is currently happening. But we don't confuse it with the truth. Truth is found in life. I think that's what the Buddha was saying. I'm free from the story I tell myself, tell myself, tell myself. I'm free from the story I tell myself over and over and over. So we talked about stories. How stories give meaning to the present moment. We've seen how we can be caught in them, how we make them more real, and we believe them, and we live in a contracted reality. And that the way out is to know there is a choice to see, and what else is happening right now. What can I connect to in the present moment that is supportive? And it gives us space. Then it allows us to get in contact with the suffering and be in relationship. To say hello and to offer that space and joy as a surrounding environment that the suffering can dwell in. And then we can become friends with that suffering, being with it, so it doesn't have to leave us again. Our resilience is made of this capacity to be uncomfortable with the suffering and that it doesn't have to change. So when we can practice like that, we can become free. And so much can become possible. So there's a choice. We have to remember that when we are caught in a story, remember there's a choice. Remember maybe one of these songs. It really helps. These kind of songs, they have a way in. So, I'd like to end with the story. I'd like to end with the song. The realm of the mind is mine, I can choose how I want to be. Both heaven and hell I know equally well, the choice is up to me. The realm of the mind is mine, I can choose where I want to be. Both heaven and well, I know equally well, the choice is up to me. So when we are in hell, we bring heaven and allow them to be there together.